After surviving the console wars of the 1990s,
The Bit War veterans are invading your podcast
to bring you gaming intel,
and old tales.
we are your hosts, Max Inventory,
And Miao Te Ching.
and we are the Bit War Veterans!
Welcome, welcome. The Bit War Veterans, Ep003, Return of the Podcast.
Today we're just going to hit on a couple of news topics quickly, and then we're going to move on to the Game & Watch radar. We'll be talking about games Rad Rogers, Tanglewood for the Sega Genesis.
What, is that a new Genesis game?
It's called Tanglewood.
Oh.
We'll be getting into that.
Our main discussion topic is all about the current voice actor strike that's going on in the gaming industry. And to tie that all in, it's all going to add up to voices and sound effects where we tell the tales of video game sounds and noises that are just stuck in our head forever.
That is our Twitter question of the week, or of the last couple of weeks. It has been, what are your favorite gaming voice lines or sound effects stuck in your head forever?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, listen!
We'll be covering all that and maybe a little bit more today on Ep003, Return of the Podcast. Hey, you. I see you sitting in front of a Target, still waiting to get your NES Classic Edition.
Oh, I'm camped out and it's so cold out here. I can't feel my fingertips.
Well, don't cave into those scalpers selling them on eBay for $250 up to $600, into the thousands even.
I know, I'm just waiting for the next shipment to come in outside of Target. I got my tent and a blanket, and I think I'm going to need more blankets.
Stop starving yourself for the mini NES Classic Editions. There are more coming. Don't give in to these outrageous scalpers you see on eBay who are charging upwards of $250 to $600 to $6,000. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, people are asking really ridiculous prices for the console and the controllers.
On one of these I clicked on, they had in their description a YouTube video link. And this video link was for an unboxing of an actual classic Nintendo. Why? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you really, really want one and you have, hundreds of dollars to throw away, sure, go ahead, buy yourself one. But if you're a normal person and you have bills to pay, wait. There will be more before Christmas. You'll be able to get one for you and your kids. Just please be wary of all these people on eBay.
And if you miss it, it's not that important. You can pick it up after Christmas. Come on.
They'll probably be everywhere after Christmas.
I just, I think it's just such a scumbag thing to do. I don't want anyone to give into it. So please don't. Don't feed into that. But speaking of the NES Mini, it's already been hacked.
What?
That's right. Apparently a Japanese person has already extracted the files and attached his own Linux kernel inside the machine.
Ooh.
It's interesting, but as of right now, it can't do too much with it. But it opens the possibility for more possibilities. It opens the door of possibilities for more possibilities.
You walk into a room of even more possibility doors. I'm just curious to see what they're going to have for the future for this. Is there going to be a decent homebrew scene? That'd be really interesting.
Could there be untapped memory that we can maybe take advantage of and slap more games into this thing? I bet you people are going to be soldering SD card slots into this sooner or later and just turning it into something completely different.
People will be doing all kind of crazy things.
Are you interested in picking up one of these things for yourself?
I kind of would be interested because the one system I don't have is an NES. I don't have a classic original NES. And I probably really won't get around to buying one and starting a collection of that. So I think this might be the way to go for me. I am a little bit skeptical of the controller size.
They say the cords are kind of short.
Yeah.
Well, you could plug in NES controllers to this.
Oh, the original NES controllers?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Well, I don't have any, so...
Well, you could pick some original ones up or some repros.
Yeah. And yeah, there probably will be a line of accessories that go with this. Nintendo always makes accessories for things.
I could imagine if this is, already taking off well, we could see some SNES minis in the future.
Oh, that would be nice. Or maybe
That could be really interesting.
yeah, or expansions or various editions with more games, something like that.
Maybe. And this one's already got some interesting games. I saw both Zeldas, Metroid, both Castlevanias, Super C, Ghosts and Goblins. What else did you see?
I'm trying to remember. You named all the ones I could remember.
All
right
the
now.
good ones.
Mega Man 2.
Yeah, Ninja Gaiden.
There was Bubble Bobble. There was Bust-a-Move.
Ice Climbers. Donkey Kong.
Or was it Donkey Kong?
Original Final Fantasy.
Yes.
So this thing is worth it for, they only want $60. That's why it's absurd to be running around trying to charge $250, $600. That's absurd.
There's just a shortage right now, and within the next few weeks, few months, there'll probably be too many of these things. They'll be on sale.
Can you imagine that by this time next year they're on sale for like $50 because there's so many of them?
No, they're on sale for $30.
$35.
$35.99.
Going back to the old Mario Run has finally got its release date for the iPhone, the iPod, the iPad, whatever the heck.
The Apple people.
The Apple people. The Apple Pod people.
Apple Pods.
It'll be releasing on December 15th. $10 for full
$10 for the full game.
for the full unlimited access, or it'll be free with restrictions. I think I would check it out for free and see what it has to offer.
Yeah, I'd check it out for free too. I don't know if I'd pay $10, but that's just me. I usually don't play games on my phone as it is. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to really enjoy it because I'm just not a phone gamer person. I usually want to save my battery.
But if there aren't any other microtransactions in that game, $10 doesn't seem that bad if it's actually worth, what they're putting out.
Yeah, with $10, they would have to make a lot of levels, and they would have to. It would have to be engaging.
Yeah, I didn't see a full breakdown of it, but apparently there's different game modes, and if you're on free, you're just probably only be able to play them so many times per day or something like that.
Yeah. Also, I wouldn't be able to play it until it came out on Android. So.
Oh yeah, that too. We're not Apple people. No. Speaking of release dates and prices coming out, the Nintendo NS is having reports circulating from an alleged UK retailer leak that we may see it for $250 at the base model or $300 for a bundle.
Ooh, and that's a great price range.
That's practically what we said in our YouTube video, and if you haven't checked that out, you need to search for Bit War Veterans on YouTube.
Shameless plug.
And go see what our ugly mugs look like.
Speak for yourself.
Oh.
But yeah, I think this is a great price range. It's very affordable for the demographic they seem to be advertising towards, which is 18 to 35-year-olds, because most of us are pretty broke. And like $200 to $300 or $250 to $300 is probably right exactly where everyone wanted it to be. Yeah.
Especially because it's not pushing out the power of the other consoles that are available, but it has its totally unique take on gaming that these other two don't have.
Well, actually, the Nintendo Switch is rumored it is supposed to be really close to on par with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and in a portable fashion. I mean, it's not going to be outputting 4K, but as far as just graphic power and processing power, it's supposed to be right up there with them, which is I find really interesting for that cheap. And it's rumored that Nintendo is not going to be selling these at a loss. So they're making money off of hardware from the get-go. So that puts them in a really interesting position.
Unfortunately, though, Zelda Breath of the Wild will not be making it for the Nintendo Switch launch.
Oh.
Ouch, burn. I got burned again.
Nintendo, making us wait even longer. It's supposed to be coming out in the summer.
Well, no, that was the earliest projection. Yeah.
Okay.
Summer at best.
Summer at best. Wow. But we do have some rumors circulating about what games are available at launch. And so far, we have a Ubisoft Just Dance game. I know that's what you always wanted. We also have a game that Ubisoft and Nintendo are partnering up with. It's rumored to be a Mario turn-based RPG with Rabbids from Raymond's Raving Rabbids.
That blows my mind.
Wow.
I hope that turns out to be true.
I hope it turns
How
out to be...
true is that? Did you even see a screenshot?
I hope it turns out to be good. But I think we're going to learn about that more come January, where Ubisoft said they will have playable demos ready.
Lately, I've been casually making my way through the original Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo because we have it, thankfully. And, this game is magical. I love it. And although the Paper Marios are nice, I've only played them a little bit. They're not Super Mario RPG. So if you're telling me I can get another game that, although isn't SquareSoft, it is Ubisoft and Nintendo, still, this could be something magical, especially with Rayman elements. Mm-hmm. Because Rayman is another game I want to talk about that's in the news. The original creator, Michael Ansel, has posted on his Instagram pictures of the original Rayman prototype for the Super Nintendo.
Yes, this is a game that never actually came out. It was never released.
It started coming out on the PC. Its first console debut was the PlayStation 1. And oh man, I really enjoyed the first Rayman. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
But there was a Rayman planned for the Super Nintendo that never saw the light of day.
And now he's posted pictures of some of the gameplay and the actual ROM card itself. And he's hinted at the possibility of finding more of these prototypes. Mm-hmm. In I think he mentioned it was another co-designer's attic or something like that. If you are a fan of Rayman, you're going to want to check this out. If you have no idea what Rayman is, you need to check out Rayman. What was your first exposure to Rayman?
I missed out on the Rayman hype. My first exposure to Rayman, believe it or not, was Rayman Legends on the Wii? Yeah. Believe it or not,
Origins or something? Legends?
Yeah, that was the first time I played a Rayman game. I mean, I might have played the N64 Rayman a little bit, but I really don't. Maybe like I rented it once or twice. But I really, that was a big franchise I just completely missed.
It was under the radar for a lot of people. But Rayman at one point, I would say, was actually a contender for a PlayStation mascot. He could have been if Sony had gotten the muscle behind it, but who knows? Rayman, you're a beloved series. Check out the Rayman games. Check out the Rayman prototype for the Super Nintendo. The last of the Wii U's have come.
And gone.
Well, I think they're still sitting on shelves in warehouses, but...
yes, Nintendo is officially stopping production of Wii U units.
Now, if you think about it, there's only been about 14 million sold, and I'm guessing on shelves they don't exactly have hundreds of millions left. Mm-hmm. So that Wii U could become a kind of a hot-ticket item in the future retro market.
Future retro.
That was weird. In other words...
Yeah, there's not a lot of these units out there, and it's possible that within 10 or 20 years' time that people will want to rediscover Wii U games and dust off their Wii U hardware, and there's not going to be too many. Because the Wii U is sold kind of around the same number that the Dreamcast sold. And we all know how collectible and hot Dreamcast things are right now. And because there were not that many units moved and there were a lot of games that didn't have long printing runs and things like that, some Dreamcast items Can be quite expensive. So,
Sega Saturn even.
yeah, Sega Saturn too.
Look at the Neo Geo stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that was expensive when it came out.
So these systems that don't really sell as well become collector's item and kind of novelty items down the line.
Now, I doubt there's kids out there listening, but when I was a kid, of course, I could not have all the systems. Lord, no. I was lucky if we had one. And even then, that's usually a generation, sometimes two behind. I mean, I got a Super Nintendo finally when the PlayStation came out. Let's put it that way. But I had a Sega Genesis all before that. So anyways, the point is, in reading the magazines, I would see the ads for like TurboGrafx 16 and the Neo Geo and the Atari Jaguar. And I always wondered what the experiences were like on these machines. Nobody I knew had this crap. It was either Super Nintendo or Genesis. A little later on, I got plugged in with somebody who was able to get their hands on more exotic stuff like the 32X, the Sega CD and the 32X, the Saturn. That's how I got to play the Activator. This bonehead I knew named Dave. But yeah, so there's going to be kids who are gaming right now who got stuck with the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 who are going to be wondering in their teens and later on when they look back at this time, what was it like playing games on the Wii U? I never got to try that. Mm-hmm. And Meowte Ching and I are big Wii U fans. We have one. And there are a lot of golden gaming experiences that you cannot get on the Xbox One, on the PlayStation 4, on the PC. You can only get on the Wii U. And they're going to be missed out on. Mm-hmm. And I think sorely looked back upon.
Mm-hmm. I think Nintendo will push to have some of their very popular Wii U titles ported over to the Nintendo Switch.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that there will be some first-party Nintendo titles that stay Wii U exclusives. Like, they will not get ported over. And I think the vast majority of third-party Wii U titles, like all 5 of them, but the vast majority of Wii U third-party titles probably will not port because, they all probably didn't do that good because of low hardware sales. So I think there's going to be a good handful of games for the Wii U that will stay Wii U exclusives, and maybe one day in the future, they will be collector's items.
That was one of my biggest questions about the Nintendo Switch. Will it be a dual screen experience? Because that would allow for emulation for the Switch in your hand to act as the gamepad for the Wii U in terms of emulating Wii U games. But they said it's not going to be. I also thought that would make sense because then you could play the 3DS games as well. Again, the Switch acting as the second screen. Mm-hmm. So, man, to me, it seems like you missed out on that. While at the same time, it seems they want to support that hardware for a little while into the Switch's life.
Yeah, Nintendo said that the Switch is not meant to be a replacement for the Nintendo Wii U, but I mean, I think we all know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. This new system in 2017 is not a replacement for our 2012 machine.
Our 2012 system that's currently not even being
manufactured. It's pretty much bombed
anymore.
and isn't manufacturing anymore.
So come on. We all know it's a replacement, Nintendo. Yeah. You're not fooling anyone.
Yeah, I know. And we're going to see a lot of dual launch titles, I bet, in the beginning.
It's rumored that there's going to be Splatoon for the Switch, and it might be a bundle package. It's not going to be a brand new Splatoon game. It would probably be the Wii U version with maybe some update or extra features.
Oh, yeah, texture update or something.
Yes.
And all the whatever updates they've had
and all the
since
levels
launch.
and things since launch. And we're also betting on a brand new Nintendo Switch Mario title. I think that's a given.
Yummy. But I can't think of the last... Mario 3D World was the last real big Mario adventure game.
Yeah, Super Mario 3D World, and then...
Mario Maker, but it's not a Mario game.
No, and then before that would be maybe Mario Galaxy 1 and 2.
Exactly. I just haven't had that like experience, that.
That thwomp. That. Yeah.
Well, our last bit of news is a Black Friday alert. Nintendo 3DSs are going to be available for $99.99
US
at the big box chain stores.
Yeah.
We're talking Best Buy, Walmart, Target, all those $100 3DSs. I might even pick one up. That's pretty freaking cool.
Freaking yeah.
That's pretty cool. So if your kids just busted one, spilled milk and Cheerios in one of them, go pick them up another one. It seems to me they want to move a bunch of this product before the Nintendo Switch comes out. Mm-hmm. Isn't that kind of always a business tactic?
Yes, and I think
Move the old stuff.
And I think they're also counting on the sale of Pokemon Sun and Moon, which just came out.
Oh, that's right.
To carry them through the holidays, because this is going to be a really hot item from now until next year.
Yeah, all the kids who don't have one, who want the Pokemon ones because they played Pokemon Go on the phone, now they get a chance to get a $100 3DS. Mm-hmm. Pick one up, pick me one up, and then mail it to us, and I will mail you a kiss in an envelope. And a hug.
That's the news.
Your news.
Your news.
Do you hear that?
Uh-oh. I think we got another bogey on our radar.
It's time again for the Game & Watch Radar.
Today's game is Rad Rogers.
Our first game of today.
Our first game of today is Rad Rogers.
Return of the Apogee platformer. This is coming to us by Interceptor Entertainment.
Some of these folks used to be a part of Apogee Games, or 3D Realms Games, what they changed their name to.
Interceptor's team is made up of a bunch of experienced devs from various parts of the industry that have worked on games as old as Duke Nukem to Halo 5, Max Payne, Call of Duty.
You name it, they worked
Oh
on.
my God. They are some Bit War veterans for sure.
Rad Rogers is a 2.5D platformer game.
Made in what? The Unreal Engine, I believe.
Yeah, Unreal 4 engine.
So it's very slick.
Oh, it's very, very slick looking. We have bright, colorful graphics, and it looks like it's an extremely humorous game with kind of risque adult humor, something like Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Little vulgarity, a little cursing in that trailer, a little
Naughty, naughty. So the game is about Rogers, the kid, who wakes up in a fantasy world where his old console named Dusty has come to life. And Dusty is his sidekick, and he also kind of turns into a weapon. And they traverse through this fantasy land together. And it's totally like self-aware, tongue-in-cheek humor. They break the fourth wall right off the bat. It looks like it's going to be fun to play and fun to just listen to and watch the cutscenes.
They're shooting, jumping, climbing, and timing. Big bosses, big guns. It's got great sound with beautiful colors, rad music, smooth animations, cute little 8-bit HUD. Mm-hmm. This game looks very fun. Dusty, the console, is being voiced by John St. John. And Roger, the main player, is being voiced by Hunter Pratt.
John St. John, I mean, wow. I mean, he's from everything, right? He's voiced your childhood. He's voiced your teenage years. He's voicing your adulthood. This man cannot be stopped.
While you're progressing throughout these levels, you've got Dusty on your back working with you, providing you with weapons and different type of ways to maneuver through the levels. I even saw portions where he detaches off you and the colors on the level kind of change, and you move as Dusty, the console, with Roger staying in place, and you're able to do some different kind of triggers in the levels or make different things happen. It's exciting looking. It's fun. It reminds me of playing Earthworm Jim.
Yeah, definitely like Earthworm Jim kind of vibes.
And Booger Man
And Rayman.
and Rayman.
Yeah, like when
It was all the mans.
Yeah, all the mans. The gun looks like it's gonna be such a fun weapon. Because like when he shoots it, it looks really powerful. I don't know how to explain it, but it seems like there's power coming out of this gun. And there's just like it looks like there's going to be a lot of different like upgrades and ammo types. Overall, I think this is a game we should be looking forward to. There was a Kickstarter for the game. It's currently ended, but there was almost 4,000 backers who raised about $80,000 for this game. But if you want to support it, you could pre-order it. And certain people who pre-order will get access to the beta. I don't know exactly how they're picking the people to get access to beta.
First come, first serve, I guess.
I don't know. But yeah, you could pre-order the game and you might be able to get a chance to play it early. Who knows? Rad Rogers is coming out on PlayStation 4 and the PC. It's supposed to be coming out in February of 2017. So you could pre-order the game right now for $10. You could also pre-order beta access to the game. That is $10. And there's also something else you could pre-order for $100 that's pretty cool.
They have put the game onto an Super Nintendo. Actually, it looks like the Super Famicom style cartridge. And it's converted to a USB drive that you plug in. How cool is that?
Yeah, so get that now because there's only a limited number of those cartridges.
Very awesome. Rad Rogers. Next on the Game & Watch radar is Tanglewood for the Sega Genesis.
Yeah, you heard us right in the intro section. We said a brand new Sega Genesis game, or Mega Drive for you international folks.
Tanglewood is a Kickstarter-funded game that is even being programmed on original Sega development kits.
This is a true 16-bit Genesis game.
From the ground up.
The way the game is being programmed, the way the graphic assets are being created, even down to the music and its creation, all of it's being done the way you would have done it in the early to mid-90s.
The video that is on the Kickstarter page is really fascinating. It comes to us from the owner of the development company, Big Evil Corp. His name is Matt Phillips. It seems to pretty much center around this guy, and if he can meet these Kickstarter goals, then he can actually build his team to do what he wants with this game. Currently, there is a free downloadable ROM prototype to give you a taste, a little idea of what like a proof of concept of what this can be if it's fully fleshed out with a team.
So in Tanglewood, you take control of the character who's like a little fox flying squirrel.
Named Nim.
And it's a 2D platforming game that takes place, it looks like, in a woods and, forest fantasy settings.
It's the fantastical realm of Tanglewood.
Yes. And the graphics look very polished and crisp.
Very colorful.
Cartoony. The animation is very fluid, especially considering that as of right now, there's only one person really working on assets for this game.
It really invokes those Disney platforming adventures, Aladdin, The Lion King.
Yeah, like the environments are very rich. Now, it's not very far along in development yet, but we do see the basics, but we do see the building blocks of the good foundation of a platformer there. Rich environments.
This also plays with a day and night cycle in the game.
It looks like there's going to be general platforming.
Exploration, puzzles, monsters, and secrets. It's all there in the platforming dream of Tanglewood.
I mean, it definitely looks like there's going to be some charm to this game. And the really cool part about this is the game is going to be on an actual cartridge. Yeah, you'll be able to play it in your Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive consoles.
Now that's for if you're pledging roughly $50 or more. There's different tiers of rewards. Some include just the cartridge. Some include cartridge manual box. And there's also other goodies for even bigger tiers of rewards, like beanies and stuff he's got thrown in there. It looks really cool. If not, it only costs $20 to pick up the digital version, and that's actually going to be set in its own self-contained software, so you don't have to worry about an emulator or anything like that. You just get the game and you can pop it on. And that'll be for PC or Mac and Linux.
Yeah, PC, Mac, and Linux.
But I'm really curious about the carts, man. I got to say, I don't have the money, but I would love to pledge that much and pick up one of these. Mm-hmm. I think we might have to split it and pick up the digital version.
It's great that people still have an interest in physical media, in cartridges, and they're still making them. There's still people interested in this. Your old hardware is not dead. There's new breath. There's new life being breathed into it every day. Tanglewood is set to come out in about another year, estimated somewhere around November 2017 or December 2017. No official release date, but that's where a lot of the goals are going to be shipping out and delivering. So we can only guess that the game is going to be coming out around that time too.
And by the time this podcast hits, there'll be roughly about 20 days left, and they've only hit about 25,000 out of their 59,000 goal. So we need you guys to check this out. We at the Bit War veterans really like this idea. I like the idea that this could be a trend where people can be programming for these older machines. I know there is a somewhat, I don't want to say thriving, but there is a community out there for Dreamcast. There's a couple people programming Dreamcast games, believe it or not.
There's new games being made on cartridges for things like Super Nintendo, the NES. Believe it or not, I hear the Atari Jaguar has a pretty impressive homebrew scene.
That's interesting.
I think it has something to do with it's, I guess, kind of easy to make games for that system.
I look forward to the idea that if this is successful, that maybe we can get other people programming on the actual old developer kits, making new old content for these old systems. And like the Mr. Matt Phillips says in his video, how cool is it that you can actually add a new game to your collection? Mm-hmm. Something brand new. That's really cool.
Now, on a little side note, we have Nathan Stanley working on the music for this game. And Nathan Stanley writes a lot of like bit pop or chiptune music, whatever you want to call it. And he's actually made releases on cartridges before. Yeah, this is a thing. If you're not aware, a lot of like bit pop artists, chiptune artists, they will release their tracks, well, digitally for download, but sometimes they'll have a very limited run of cartridge release where you could just plug the cartridge in.
Yeah, those are neat.
Yeah, you just it's almost like listening to a record or something. You just pop the cartridge in your console and you listen to their album that way. And that's just fantastic. It's brilliant creativity.
They've got someone who's already used to working with that style of music and those soundboards.
Mm-hmm. And the limitations that come
exactly.
The limitations that come with writing 16-bit music.
Tanglewood, we love it. You might like it too.
It looks cool.
Be a little furry thing. It's cute.
You want to be a cute little fox squirrel thing. Oh, it's so cute.
It's cuter than a hedgehog. So I've been seeing on Twitter, there's this hashtag performance matters. What's that all about, Meow Teaching?
It's about the video game voice actors strike that's going on currently. So that's the joint union of the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of TV and Radio Artists. So this union represents a lot of professional video game voice actors and various other performers all across the country.
Oh, journalists, announcers, dancers, DJs, news writers. I mean, they represent a lot of talent. But what we're looking at mainly today is the voice actors and the motion performance and motion capture artists. Toward the end of 2014, their contract had expired, and negotiations for a new one had begun. But after 19 months of failing to be able to meet eye to eye on what kind of standards should be set for the oncoming years, the actors have had to strike to prove their point and let their voice be heard. And quite honestly, I think they need our support. And I'll tell you why they need our support, because I like having games with good voice acting, and when I hear bad voice acting, I want to rip my hair out or put the subtitles on and cut the volume down.
You don't want to be stuck in a Jill sandwich of bad voice acting.
So there's 4 main points to their contract discussion that they want us to know, the audience, the fans, about what's going on with these negotiations. So first and foremost, which is one of the most important aspects, is vocal stress. These actors are paid pretty much per 4-hour session. And you could better believe that any company, any corporation wants to maximize the amount of time they have to pay for these actors. So they're asking them to do a lot in these 4-hour sessions. And of course, you know, the larger the role, they're going to have more sessions. But it's one thing to be talking normally for 4 hours. Could you imagine doing some crazy voice for like another 4 hours and screaming and, doing all kinds of stressful sounds?
Yeah, the next time you play a modern game, especially something like Call of Duty or another game that has a lot of
Screaming at the top of your lungs over explosions.
Yeah, grunting. Just pay attention to how much of that is actually in the background. And not even the main characters, just, all the background characters and side characters. And imagine having to do takes like that over and over again. That could definitely be very stressful and tiring on your vocal cords. And then you'll have to come back to the studio for the next session the next day and continue to do stressful sessions.
Or worse yet, that job is over and you have already booked another set of studio time for another project, and now you can't do a commercial where you have to sound smooth because you blow out your voice yelling out "Tango Down" for 6 hours in 6 different voices.
Imagine you're at a bar or maybe a concert, a loud restaurant, and you're there and, you kind of have to yell a little bit in order for the people next to you to hear. Definitely by the end of the night, your voice is gone, or you might have a sore throat, or you feel very raspy and hoarse the next day. It's something like that.
And in some cases, much worse. There are stories of voice actors who have continued to work until their cords started to bleed, until they have passed out, until they have vomited. And this is all for the love of the craft, while at the same time trying to get paid and make ends meet and not get blacklisted as difficult to work with because he didn't want to scream for the last 2 hours of his session. One example of that abuse comes from a 2013 article from Polygon, which is properly titled, "Why Aren't Voice Actors Treated as Movie Stars?" Treated as stars, where Steve Bloom, a very popular voice actor, mentions that he had to walk off the set of a game because they wanted him to do 20 different voices, vocally stressful, in one session for scaled pay. So imagine yelling "grenade" and "tango down" in 20 different voices and cramming it into, again, the shortest amount of time possible. It is... I don't want to use the term abuse too loosely, but it is at least a negligence of the health for these performers. When it comes to vocal stress, I can absolutely relate. I was actually a musician for several years. I was in theater a little bit, so I've been trained to sing. I've been trained to scream. I've been trained to maximize my performance potential while on the road. It's difficult. And if you have a bad show with a bad day where your voice is blown out by the end, you'll be lucky if you can recover for the next performance if you can have 24 hours of total silence, no speaking. So I know what vocal stress can do to a person. I have performed until my throat bled. I have belted out notes or screams until I've almost passed out. I know what it could be like.
After so many years, you kind of changed your whole vocal approach after you realized I can't go on screaming like this
For the rest of my life.
For the rest of my life. I won't have a musical career.
At that time, I thought I was going to do it for a very longer time. A very longer time.
Well, that's a great way of putting it. So yes, we understand. And we just want voice actors to be held at a higher standard that film actors and stage actors are held at.
Which is another key of this conversation, that there is precedent set for many of the terms they're asking for in other contracts and situations similar in the multimedia industry.
And a lot of these voice actors walk on the set not knowing what they're going to work on. A lot of these companies don't tell or don't give much information. So you go to the studio, they hand you a script, which may or may not even have the actual names of the game characters. You may or may not get a synopsis of the plot. You may or may not be told if your character is a main character or a sidekick character or a background character. You really don't know what you're recording for. It's pretty much just, here's the script, go.
Well, not even here's the script, but here's just your lines.
Right. In many cases where there's characters, multiple characters having dialogue, these voice actors are not in a room recording it at the same time together.
Not like how we are,
Right.
sitting here talking.
Yeah, sometimes they'll just, be given a script with just their characters' lines, and they'll have to say them. And sometimes many of these lines have no context behind them. They're just words on a page, and they have to say them the best way possible.
This is the next major talking point in their negotiations is greater transparency on their roles. Of course, the audition process is most likely to be shrouded in mystery for the reasons of trying to keep information from leaking. But once an actor has been chosen for the role, they need to be able to know what they're working on, number one, for the negotiation of the contract. Imagine being told one thing, you're going to work on an action-adventure movie, and then you turn up on set, and it turns out you're going to be Iron Man. Wouldn't you have liked to know that before going in? Mm-hmm. That you would like to have maybe asked your agent to negotiate for a little more money?
Right. I recall hearing a story of a voice actor who worked on Fallout 3, where he went in to record his lines. He didn't know the character's name. He didn't know the character's role. He was just there to record his lines. And when the game came out, he found out that he was actually one of the major characters in the storyline. It wasn't until after the game was complete and released that he realized how important he was in the story. Now, isn't that crazy? Like, imagine going to film a movie. They have you do scenes by yourself. You really don't know who exactly you're working with. And then they edit it all together, and you're like the co-star of the movie.
I heard an interview with voice actor Crispin Freeman. I believe he plays Winston in Overwatch, but he had gone in for a game. He didn't know what it was until he arrived, and it turned out to be Mafia 3. And his character, that game involves a lot of race issues and racist characters set in like the 60s or 70s. And so he was a little dismayed that after showing up, finding out his character's got to throw out, N-words and hateful words, that maybe had he known that before going in, he might have declined the role. It made him feel uncomfortable.
And this is the thing that they have to watch out for. If we compare this to theater, stage acting, and if we compare this to film, actors will get information about the script beforehand, even if it is just at least a little bit of information and synopsis.
Well, there's precedent set in other fields of entertainment that it should be translating over to video games as the budget and methodology has increased and begun to merge with cinema, really. And that dovetails right into the next major point of having more stunt coordinators present for motion capture.
Mm-hmm. More and more voice actors are being asked to do motion capture and sometimes a little bit of stunt work.
Even if they're not trained for stunt work.
And that's the problem.
Or having a stunt coordinator present.
Yes, a lot of these voice actors do that. They voice act. And sometimes they walk onto the set not knowing their character, not knowing what it's about, and then being asked to get into motion capture suits and to physically act out certain scenes. The idea behind this is that if a character in a game has to be in a active or vocally stressful situation, that sometimes having the voice actor do the movements and motions while they say their lines will enhance the effect.
They're trying to be more authentic,
Right. And the problem is that some of these voice actors are not familiar with motion capture acting or stunt acting, and that some of these actors are unfamiliar and there is no one present on the set that could safely instruct them on how to do these stunts and motion capture movements.
And I'm sure that's not every case, but in some. Or at least enough to where these actors have had to complain to their union about it, and especially when it comes for terms of renegotiating a contract. Hey, this is a problem. We want this addressed. Because there are again, tales of these actors being hurt because of lack of investment into the proper means to take care of your actors and your crew. One example is Phil LaMarr being strung up from the rafters and swinging across, taking one for the team for Shadows of Mordor without a stunt coordinator present. Who knows if that rigging was proper? Miao Ti-Ching and I work in theater. We know how important you got to have an experienced, knowledgeable, trained person who's hanging things from the ceiling that could fall down and kill people like lights, let alone swinging people through the air like Peter Pan. This brings up another good point, too, that's the hole in the argument. You want authenticity. You want the actual voice actor, his face to be captured and his whole body while he's running with a machine gun prop and doing rolls and dives. But you don't want the authenticity of him having body movements like a trained soldier that provide authenticity to whatever, situation you're providing. You don't want him or her to have training in how to dive, how to swing from these things so they don't get hurt, end up suing you. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. Well, what they're asking the actors to do is to increase their scope of range of what they do. These voice actors are being asked to do more than voice act, and that's where it plays back into transparency. And they need to be informed up front about what a studio wants them to do. So a voice actor who is not very keen on doing physical movements or motion capture maybe won't apply to that certain job if they know that they're going to do that up front.
And wouldn't you be asking for a little more money if they were putting your health at risk? Yes, I would.
As these budgets for these AAA games increase and they are asking voice actors to do more than voice act, they're asking them to do motion capture and they're asking them to do stunts in some cases, that this is blurring the line between voice acting and multimedia acting. I don't know what
That's a great 90s buzzword. Thanks for bringing that in. Multimedia. It's very appropriate.
Yeah, but you get my point. They're doing more than just voice acting. This has now become a greater process.
This isn't like when you voice over an anime or a foreign film. You actually have to be filmed.
And this isn't when, video games only had a few lines of voice because that's all the memory they had.
Right.
You're doing scripts that could be just as complex as a film script.
Or longer.
Or longer.
Imagine what David Hayter went through recording for Solid Snake and Metal Gear 4. It's like 8 hours of dialogue, and you can guarantee whatever amount is in the finished product, at least double the quadruple was on the cutting room floor from various takes.
And so as voice acting in video games grows into this more of this multimedia approach that they're taking, then the contracts have to evolve too. Because the contracts were drawn up when games only had few lines of dialogue, and you could finish everything that belonged in a video game in a day.
So games definitely did not have the budget they do now. They did not have the earnings they do now, and they didn't have the amount of voice and motion capture work that they do now.
And that's a big key, the earnings too, because some of these AAA video games are grossing more than what some of the top blockbusters, in film make in a year.
They are catching up to them. And that's the fourth pillar of the negotiations of this contract. Secondary compensation. Now, this isn't royalties. This isn't residuals. This is just a slight bonus if a game sells 2 million copies again at 4, again at 6, and then capped at 8 million. It's not a huge bonus, but it's enough to give back to an actor. And I'm sure, and this is one of the areas a lot of people are divided when discussing this, is how much should they really make? Well, ultimately, I think it should be negotiated on a contract-by-contract basis. But in the, whatever they call it, boilerplate, the template contract that should apply to most all of the actors applying for this work needs to have something in it to provide for more sharing on a product that goes on to sell 8 million copies. I mean, don't you think if it's your voice, and then keep in mind, you're trotted out at conventions, at promotional things, they're using your voice likeness in the character, in the commercials, don't you think they should share in a little bit more of that?
So let's go over voice actors and payment first to understand this a little bit better. So the voice actors work at a kind of constant rate. This is their session rate. And that is
It's close to $900 for 4 hours.
Yeah, it's over $800 for 4 hours of work in a day, and that's their session. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, $800 for 4 hours of work. That's insane. These voice actors are rich. But unfortunately, that's really not the case unless you're, top of the game.
Which even then, they're not hyper rolling in dough like you might think. Ask Jennifer Hale. Ask Steve Bloom.
So this is what happens. You go in and you record your lines for 4 hours, and in many cases, you complete recording your lines in 4 hours. You get your a little over $800, and you are done. You need to go find the next job. Now, the voice acting industry in video games is actually a very small industry. It's kind of like once you get your foot in the door, you kind of know everybody.
Yeah, you ever heard of Troy Baker? He's popping up in a lot of games right now.
But what the point is I'm trying to make is it's very hard to find your next job. It's not like you have a voice acting job lined up every single day of the week. If you're starting off or you're not really a very well-established video game voice actor, you're probably not getting steady and consistent work.
The work doesn't fall from the sky. You don't become a voice actor and just get called up magically for all these jobs. You have to fight for competition for a smaller number of jobs. And that's why they also bounce around between cartoons, animes, television shows, other video games.
Yeah, commercial voiceover. And in a lot of these cases, you are either freelancing and trying to find all of these jobs on your own, so you're spending precious time during the day researching, or you have an agent and they're helping you find jobs, and some of your session fees go to your agent.
They're also taking the union cuts. So, and a lot of this is done in LA, in California, in major cities where living isn't cheap. So you've got taxes coming out of that little paltry sum of $900. By the time you actually get it, it may only be $500-$600 or something like that, depending on your situation. So it's not that they just worked for 4 hours. They may have had to work an additional 4 hours just landing the gig. So think about that. When it comes to what we're talking about, the increased presence of motion capture, you're not just sitting and recording for 4 hours in some cases. You had to sit for an hour, maybe 2 hours, and have this crew put tiny little motion capture dots on your face and rig up a camera that hangs around your head and your neck and sits with a light flashing right in your face. And it's your face and facial movements and gestures that are on the character. So if you're going to tell me that you want to use these likenesses of these people and that they don't matter, they're interchangeable, you're wrong. Then why are you even bothering to capture their faces and use their faces and their voices on these games?
So let's break down what this additional compensation that they ask for, what does it really mean? So this is not a residual payment, and this is not a royalty payment.
They just want a secondary compensation for the games that go on to sell between 2 and 8 million copies. They're not asking for a lot. This really isn't a lot of money. But it is nice, especially if you have a slump in work where the game sells to 4 million and you get a small check come in that helps you float the bills to the next one. Now you may be thinking too that is too much money, or it's a lot of, there are too many games that do that. It's not exactly true. The PlayStation 4 is the biggest winner here with 25 games at 2 million plus copies sold, 7 games at 4 million plus copies sold, 5 at 6 million, and only 3 at 8 million plus games. So you're talking about 3 games in the life cycle of the PlayStation 4 thus far that would have even inspired the height of their cap. And for the Wii U, I mean, come on. 2 games at 2 million, 5 games at 4 million, 1 game at 6+ million. They didn't even have a game that broke 8 million yet. And the Xbox One, similar story. There's only about 17 at 2 million, 5 at 4 million plus copies sold, and 1 game at 6 million plus copies sold. I don't think the Xbox One has even had 1 game touch 8 million copies.
So let's put that into perspective. Let's see. Call of Duty, which one sold $1 bajillion?
It's Black Ops 3 or something. There was a recent article that highlighted how the Call of Duty series as a whole has grossed like $15 billion. Activision this year is set to make close to $7 billion in profits. And they tell these actors there's not enough money. Are you kidding me?
And they also say, we could pay you these additional fees you're asking for, but that would set a bad precedent. Then all the coders would be asking for money for good game sales. All the artists would be asking for bonuses. It would just disrupt the entire industry. That's what they say.
This is another reason why we have to stand behind them for this, because that is what these 12 major companies they are striking against. That's what they're afraid of, is letting one ant stand up and then all the ants stand up. Because developers, coders, other people involved in video games, they don't even have unions to circle behind and stand up. And although they do get different options, you may think, well, the developer doesn't make as much as they should. And I agree, they probably don't in many cases. But they also do get other options than these voice actors do. And you do get sharing in the profits if you do have stock options in the company and it's doing well.
And it's not their place to say it's going to set a bad precedent in the gaming industry, because this union is for a very specific thing and a very specific thing only.
No,
it's the voice actors.
Well, they are right about that. It will set a dangerous precedent, because then other people who do deserve more are going to ask for more. And that's what, the people in power don't want.
Mm-hmm. And we all know the crappy conditions that a lot of our coders and developers are subjected to: long hours, low pay, crunch times, extreme amount of working very late hours.
This shouldn't be about voice actors and performers against coders and developers and other people in the industry. Just because they're not being represented as well right now doesn't mean we need to tear down the voice actors either. In fact, they should be behind them, because this is an example of standing up, and then the developers and coders and other people can be involved, and they can stand up and they can say, you're earning $7 billion as a company as a whole. We deserve a bigger piece of the pie, because it wouldn't have happened without us. We're the best, and you can't get better talent. And it matters. We matter. Remember, corporations and factories had no problem shoving children into these machines and working them to death. Workers have had to fight for rights since the beginning of time immemorial.
Mm-hmm. So voice actors are looking for more information on their gigs. They want to limit vocally stressful situations. So actors are looking for more breaks, or just a slight decrease in the amount of time they would have to do consistently vocally stressful work.
And that comes with being more transparent.
Mm-hmm. Actors are looking for better supervision with stunts and motion capture. And lastly, they're looking for secondary compensation if a game is a smash hit, and only when games hit 2, 4, 6, 8 million copies sold. And what they're looking for is a very small sum that would be $800 or less.
And this doesn't affect the industry as a whole as of right now. So it's not like these people are totally out of work for right now, and it's not like they're demanding this high pay from small studios. In fact, they have a totally different set of contract that it's been working out for smaller developers that they are very excited about in sharing because they want bigger, brighter, better talent to be involved in indie and upcoming games. And another place that's going to be really useful is the VR games, where they don't necessarily have the AAA budgets, and they could get some really quality voice acting. Because how bad would it be to be in VR and you were almost a Jill sandwich? I mean, that would kill the experience for me, unless it was supposed to be a schlocky, 80s movie horror thing. So these 12 companies are Activision Publishing, Blind Light, Core of Discovery Films, Disney Character Voices, Inc., Electronic Arts, Formosa Interactive, Insomniac Games, Interactive Associates, Take-Two Interactive, VoiceWorks Productions, Warner Brothers Games, and other related outsourcing parties that because sometimes, BioWare might handle voice work by hiring another agency to do it.
What I want people to do is to remember these companies. Also realize that a video game usually takes anywhere between 3 to 5 years to develop.
Yeah, as of right now, it looks like games that were slated up through the beginning and middle of next year release are pretty much done. But this could start affecting games that were slated for the last quarter of 2017's release
And into
and
the future.
further on if they don't sort this out soon. And it's just ultimately about better treatment and a little bit better pay. And quite frankly, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal to me, but you don't get rich by spending money. And again, this could be a threat to their pocketbooks if they have to open up to other members of the video game development community who want better treatment and better pay. Think about Bungie. When they used Peter Dinklage, they paid for the Game of Thrones guy to come in and do that voice. And people didn't really like it. And who did they call to replace Peter Dinklage? They didn't call Kevin Spacey. They didn't call James Earl Jones. They called Troy Baker, a voice actor. So it's not even that actors from the screen could even just come in and do voice acting. That doesn't always work either. And it's a lot more money to pay for Hollywood talent, and in my opinion, in many cases, a big waste. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it feels like some of the games I've seen where they had Hollywood talent, they kind of half-assed it or phoned it in. And they probably don't take video games that seriously. Especially for what they get paid. Why should they? And I don't think Hollywood names attached to games really sell them. So here's another point that we need to make and how we can help this situation. And not just now, but in the future. I think we need to pay more attention to voices and voice actors that we like in video games. Because these people also do anime and cartoons and other voiceover work. And now in the days of social media, we can get behind these people and more invested, so to speak, in their brand, in their character, in who they are, and give them support and let these companies know they matter. It matters when you cast Jennifer Hale in a role in a video game.
Actually, a lot of these voice actors go on tours in like video game and anime conventions.
Yeah, Comic Cons.
Because that's where a lot of their fan base congregates. So go there, listen to their panels. If they're, pay for an autograph. Listen to what they're talking about. Are they doing work for a certain game that you never heard about? Is it like a little indie game? Buy it.
Drop them a line on Twitter. Say, I appreciate you for being in this game. It would truly be different without you. Think about a game like The Last of Us, the acclaim that gets for the performances.
Yeah, support the media that they put out.
There's the hashtag movement, Performance Matters. So you can use hashtag Performance Matters to help link to your favorite voice lines or your favorite actors.
And you could also write letters to some of these major companies that they're picketing against.
That's what they want.
And also, target some of their advertisers. Say, hey, because sometimes if you attack the company directly in that sort of a way, they don't really care. But what they do care about is the money. So you convince their advertisers to pull out or reconsider, and then all of a sudden the major video game company pays attention.
Yeah, it'd be really nice if the magazines actually got behind this, but, they're funded by having those ads in their magazines, so I highly doubt they're going to say, we're not going to advertise your games until you sort this out.
And like I said, I have a fear that there could be a drop in quality in voice acting in major games because of the strike. And I'm not saying the strike is a bad thing, but that when you have a bunch of talent that are demanding a little bit of change in the industry and they all stop voice acting, I think people are going to hear the difference. That yes, these voice actors are professionals and they really do make our video games much more fun and immersive and memorable. And that yes, these people really do deserve the money, the safety, the recognition, and much more.
There's a lot of talented people out there who aren't in union, I'm sure, but chances are they're not going to be in these games if something doesn't get sorted out with this tier of talent. And I don't want to go back. In fact, many games are still produced today with really bad voice talent, and it irritates the hell out of me. And I highly doubt a lot of that is actually union talent.
So we want you to get involved. Start paying attention to some of your favorite voice actors, the things that they're in, the companies they work for. Read some of their interviews. You might
Show
get a
them
little
some love.
Yeah, send them some love. Support the things that they're in. And, if it gets down to that point where you realize, wow, these voice actors are really getting screwed over, maybe don't buy the games that these companies are putting out. What this might ultimately lead up to is the idea of profit sharing and bonus incentives being universally accepted for all the roles in making of a video game.
I don't know about you, but I am more incentivized to work harder when I know I can get a bigger piece of that pie that we're making together collectively.
Capitalism pie.
Yummy.
With whipped cream on top.
Yes. And it's also nice to not have to have surgery on your vocal cords, to have lesions on your vocal cords, to be like a football player who gets his knee busted out and is out of the game way too early before they even had a chance to go pro. That's happening to these people, some of these people out there. Mm-hmm. They're being hurt and then cast aside. And there's another point that I've heard from at least 2-3 different sources in interviews that the lawyers for the industry side have been pretty nasty throughout these discussions, pretty much telling them that they're disposable, they are that they don't really matter, they don't sell the game, and that's what we're saying. We have to support these actors and show these companies that they do help sell the game, they do help sell the experience. Mm-hmm. And maybe you switched to Kiefer Sutherland for Metal Gear 5 and we still bought it, but still it mattered that it wasn't David Hayter.
So we're going to be keeping our eye on this situation, and we'll be updating you from time to time whenever there's more, major breakthroughs in news and maybe even contract renegotiations coming out of this situation.
Until then, remember what playing games with horrible voice acting is like. And that's what we're going to get into with our Twitter topic of the show.
Mm-hmm. We're going to be getting into good and bad voice acting, sound effects, and just sound design in general.
I don't even think we had any good voice acting in our Twitter
Yeah.
We're going to help remind you of just how bad it could be, how bad it was in some cases, and how grateful we ought to be to have wonderful people working in this field, making our characters come to life. It's time to tell your tales.
It's time to tell the tales of video game sound effects memories. keeping up with the theme of episode 3, which has to do with voices, voice acting, sound effects,
Sound acting.
voice effects.
That's right.
I asked you lovely people on Twitter, what video game sound effects and what video game voice lines are just like stuck in your head forever? Like you will never be able to unhear these noises from your brain.
Sound is so important in video games. It can help make or break a video game, in my experience. There's times where I've had to turn a game off or turn the sound off because it's so bad. And there's times where I continued on throughout my life humming these tunes and saying some of these lines over again, especially when voice became incorporated into games more and more. Mm-hmm. Should we kick it off with our own or start with the tweeter tweets?
Let's start with our own. All right.
So let's go ahead and get our own out of the way because we've had a much stronger response as the audience grows for this show. Thank you all very much for interacting with us and making this a fun, cool thing.
Mm-hmm. Because we're all about trying to document our experiences, our shared experiences with these games.
Preserve the memories.
Yes, every time you answer, you're helping to build to the encyclopedia of game memories.
You put yourself amongst the ranks of the Internet Archive of gaming history.
You are immortalized in wave form forever.
Of gaming experiences lost.
There's been one game that's really followed me throughout life as far as voice acting, knowing a lot of the dialogue in the game, being able to pretty much practically quote the game. And that's Star Fox 64.
Fox, no!
Yes, so as you know, Star Fox is full of quotes. New barrel roll. You know, very classic quotes that we all remember, we could all say. But I have one in particular that I just absolutely love. Star Fox.
Star Wolf?
No.
I am the Great Leon. Pigma here. I don't even remember the other guy.
And my absolute favorite line in Star Fox 64 happens to be...
Cocky little freak!
Cocky little freaks!
Cocky little freaks!
I love that line. You know, you can start firing on them and just, cocky little freaks! Nah, you know. Best line in Star Fox. I think maybe the second best one is Falco. I guess I should be thankful. Yeah, I think you should be thankful, Falco. I just saved your life. And of course, do a barrel roll.
Do a barrel. I served with your father. You know, your father was a good shot, too. Your father.
Jeez, Peppy, let it go.
Your father.
Yo, I'm trying to get over that. Trying to get over my dad.
Do a barrel roll. Your father did good barrel roll.
Were there any other games or sounds of note you wanted to touch upon?
The next one is a PC RTS called Majesty. It was moderately successful and popular. I don't know how many people have played it that are listening, but it had a lot of really good voice lines. And by really good, I mean really cheesy, really good voice lines.
Quite silly.
Uh-huh. So the first one that really sticks out to me is the female peasant would occasionally sing, I serve with pleasure. But it's like all like kind of off key like that.
Like flat and
Yeah,
cockneyed.
Yeah, cockneyed.
I serve with pleasure.
I serve with pleasure.
She sounds very happy, doesn't she?
And she carries around a saw on her hand, like she just goes around and just saws and builds things. Oh yeah, there's always voices and things being said in that game because you could also hear the narrator's voice, and he's like, "Oh, someone has stolen the ring. You must get it back. I am the narrator." And then the last one I wanted to show from Majesty is. Whenever a character dies, they say a death line. So this is the death line from like the primitive cultist priest people.
Pretty bright light. Pretty bright light.
Yeah. So imagine if you send your army of priest cultists out against some really strong monster and they don't survive. It's funny because you hear pretty bright light, pretty bright light, pretty bright light. And that's what it sounds like when your cultists die. Max inventory. What are some sounds that you can't get unstuck from your head? Tell me about yours.
Oh, wow. This is such a monumental question. I mean, sound is just so important to me. Even now, I'm doing a sound-related thing. When it comes to sound effects, my childhood was brightened up, and we always got a good laugh about Pitfall for the Atari 2600. When you get on that rope and you Atari version of Tarzan across the little alligators and that. I mean, these are just great sounds. I used to laugh when E.T., when you make his neck grow. I mean, just goofy. I used to laugh at these sounds because they were so goofy. And yet they worked. But they brought a lot of laughter to me. When it comes to voice, Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation was, I think, the game that really proved that games could be on is just an equal level of art form as film and cinema. And a large part of that was brought about by the acting and the portrayal in this game that had never quite been done. Not on this cinematic scale that this game had been done. So that really impacted me on how to perceive games, how games can be made, how much voice content and how much actual acting you can have in games. Another that comes to mind is Final Fantasy X, which was the first fully voice-acted RPG, or at least Squaresoft RPG, and first Final Fantasy that was fully voice-acted. But it was also impactful because not all the voices were good. In the lead of this game, poor Tidus and Yuna, the female, man, they were just not good.
Ha ha. Ha ha ha.
And I have to pick my scene for that. And
This is weird.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
And you know what? Those actors didn't write that. They didn't. Oh, I pray to God it wasn't their idea to let's do this. I'm sure they weren't even together when they did that. They may have never even met each other. They recorded their lines at different times. But dear Lord, oh man. And you know what blows my mind, Meow Teaching?
What?
The young man who recorded as Tidus back in 2001 is James Arnold Taylor. And if you don't know him, he's been the voice for many, many things after that, including Ratchet of the Ratchet and Clank series and Obi-Wan Kenobi of Star Wars The Clone Wars. So this guy has really come a long way, and I give him a lot of credit for that. I love him so much more now than I did as Tidus. But you know what? Part of that problem was also, I'm sure, direction or lack thereof, and that script. But I got to go for that scene where they are laughing. What were they doing? Like laughing their sorrows away? Or yeah, I guess that's bargaining with death. Ha ha
Ha ha. So this could either be the denial phase of
It was my denial of these the acting, the portrayals going on here. It's like I'll take more Waka over this. Give me more of that goofball. At least his character's goofy and his goofy voice matched it.
This is great.
Hey, Waka!
Why didn't you tell me?
He was like the Jar Jar Binks of Final Fantasy X.
That's different.
Oh, I'll get flamed for that. I can't say that.
Bad mouth, and that's all you can come up with.
Maybe he was.
Well, then you tell me.
Yes, that scene killed me. It was so funny, and it just, whatever serious moment they were going for, they shot it like a duck in Duck Hunt. And I laughed at it like the dog when you miss. But let's move on to much more important people. You, the listeners.
Yes. So this
The tweeters.
So I asked this question about a month ago. It's been that long.
We've been delayed. Work, holidays, crazy stuff.
Yes. We are workaholics.
Computers.
I brought up Star Fox 64 as being some of the most memorable voice acting lines from video games. For me, personally, Mr. Wazert, or is that Wazert? I don't know how to say your name.
Wazert.
Mr. Wazert recalls the Super Nintendo Star Fox sounds.
Oh, those were definitely iconic because they weren't actual speech. They were just mumbo jumbo, but they were so cute.
Yes. All right, let's listen to some right now.
Falco, my man. Slippy sounded so much more manly.
Yeah. For some reason, I always remember like Peppy's. It's like, when do rabbits make that noise?
At the time, I had a friend whose sister, I believe, had a gerbil or hamster, and yes, his teeth scratching on that little water bottle tip, little metal tip, made me think of Peppy's little scratchy voice.
Isn't that so weird how these little random connections we have can remind us of a video game sound? Like, that's how powerful sound design is.
That's right.
That's what we want you to realize.
It brings back memories.
Yes, I mean, we're triggering memories. Your memories are getting triggered. We're all getting triggered here. All right.
Who's up next?
Button Masher Bros shares his memory of Fable 2 and Hero, your will energy is getting low.
Your health is low. Do you have any potions or food?
Watch that.
That was a cool game, man. I love Fable 2. Thanks for writing in. Game Boy Guru.
Game Boy Guru tells the tale of Gauntlet on the NES. And this sound.
Oh, man.
Really early voice synth sounded so funny.
I mean, yeah, Nintendo hardly had any.
Yeah.
I mean, Punch Out, you know. Yet, knockout.
And of course, angry video game nerd pointing out. Oh, yeah. So VG Dad plays literally every single line of Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
He's right about that.
Oh, yes.
They're all memorable because of how poorly translated that script was. If you don't know, please look up videos from that game. Twitter user From the Waste also joins in on the Symphony of the Night. Nostalgia Train.
Your words are as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you. What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. How about you?
That is a prime example of how bad that game can get. What is man? A miserable pile of secrets?
Let me just throw this glass of wine. Cha!
That's what that ching noise was.
Yeah.
So again, sound effects, see? People who've been through that, they knew exactly what that ching noise was. Ching. Seriously, though, one of the best Castlevania games, if not the best.
Twitter user La Cacalo.
La Cacalo.
I don't even have to say anything. I'm just going to play the sound.
Let's see if you know what it is.
Oh, I think we all know what it is. I think we are all emotionally scarred because of it.
Oh, God, stop it.
I think Yoshi's Island was responsible for turning an entire generation off the idea of having kids.
Yoshi's Island was a fun game, except for getting the baby off you. Oh, Lord. But, hey, that is one major incentive to not get hit.
Right. And also, almost an equally annoying sound effect.
Hello, hey, listen, look, watch out, listen.
You remember how fun it was in Ocarina of Time to have the only speech be, hey, listen, hey, listen.
Oh, there was the occasional, watch out.
Watch out. After you died. Zelda, Ocarina of Time, thank you for, hey, listen.
Listen.
Star Foxers Incorporated
Wow.
agrees with me about Star Fox 64.
Well, he has to. It's in his name.
He says also Fox voice and sounds from Melee. And the one that really sticks out to me is when you win the game as Fox, or like when you win a match as Fox, and he goes,
Mission complete.
like, he has some kind of a weird like cadence to it. It sounds like he has an accent or something. It's strange.
He was voiced by Capcom.
Also from the intro to Mario Tennis 64.
Oh. So here comes Wario and Waluigi, and Luigi says, "That's right, Luigi. You don't have to be afraid, because you're Mario's brother, and Mario will take care of everything, as he always does." So speaking of Super Mario,
Yeah, the sound when Mario spins with the cape over and over again.
I love it.
Yeah.
What is that? The Y button? Now, see, I like it when you're breaking tiles with that too. You just Yep.
That's a very satisfying sound, those tiles breaking.
Love it.
Ooh, yeah.
And again, the memories, man.
Oh, thank you, Star Foxers, for telling your tales and sharing the experience with us.
The Retro Tuna brings up one of the Sega Genesis classics, Altered Beast.
Rise from your grave.
I mean, that just lit up your world if you were a kid who got a Sega Genesis or Mega Drive when it first came out, and this thing had voices in it, man. It was just like the arcade. It was ahead of everything else that was out at the time because Sega Genesis does what Nintendo don't.
Now, is it just me, or does it sound like he says, "Wise from your grave"? like Bernie Sanders is voicing this game.
Wise from your grave. Wise from your debt.
Yeah, right, it's from your debt. Shush.
Well, of course, there's that, and the best part of Altered Beast, which is Power Up.
The refueling sound in River Raid.
River Raid is a huge part of my past when it comes to Atari 2600 games. Played the heck out of River Raid. It was one of my dad's. It was one of the few games my dad would play. It was one of the charming things about these old systems, too, is they couldn't handle too many sound effects going off all at once, so they would have to drop some sound out somewhere else in order to play the featured sound.
Like, it would usually be like harmony tracks or like the drum tracks in the music would have to drop so the sound effect could play. Because you only had a limited number of channels available for these sounds.
And memory to crank it all out.
Next, we have Stephen Eidher. I hope I'm saying your name correctly.
We're trying.
We're trying, but I don't know how to read.
It's your fault for having a complex Twitter handle.
At the start of Time Crisis 2, in the intro cutscene.
I remember playing this at the movie theater.
It's me, Christy. I found some data about the satellite network. Haven't the agents left yet?
It's me, Christy.
I found some data about the satellite network.
Yeah, this is a game full of cheesy, good, bad voice acting. I miss Time Crisis.
Time Crisis, man, what a game changer by having the pedal and the gun that recoils, made you feel like a real boss. Woo! I mean, that talk about interactive. This is back when we were barely used to controllers vibrating.
The Kodiak remembers a lot of Warcraft sound effects and voice lines.
Some of his noteworthy ones were...
Job's done.
The human grunts. When they finish working on something, they let you know with that wonderful phrase.
And then they always want more work.
Well, more work. It almost sounds kind of disdainful when they say, more work. Gotta go back to work. But for Warcraft 3, I gotta say, the dwarves. These guys, I think it's the Dwarven airship or one of the little airship units that they make. When you take them down, these guys go down, and when they die, they say, they came in from behind.
Stay on target. They came from behind.
I love it.
And he also likes the Alkalites, and this line in particular.
Where shall my blood be spilled? I bow to your will.
Sounds like he enjoys being in charge. Once games got into full motion video, speech obviously was coming with the territory. But Resident Evil not only had full motion video, it had some of the best, cheesiest, goofiest, worst acted dialogue in video game history. Such as everyone's classic,
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Another very early line was something about giving Barry giving Jill a lockpick, saying, "You, the master of unlocking."
Oh, yeah, I remember
It's
that.
just so unnatural, you know. No one speaks like that, and this poor actor had to say that and come across as best he could. I think he knew they were being schlocky, or maybe he didn't, because some of these people really do think they're acting dead seriously.
Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Thanks. Maybe I'll need it.
So, user Mandel Creed brings up one of my favorite games. Thank you for bringing this game up, because it's a kind of a cult classic and kind of a sleeper hit.
Mandel Creed, Mandel Creed,
Mandel Creed.
Mandel Creed.
He brings up Eternal Darkness for the Nintendo GameCube. Oh, this is actually a pretty good, like, creepy survival horror type game. It's not come out for anything except for the GameCube, and it was kind of an uncommon release. If you ever get the chance to play it, please do. This game does some really cool stuff. I won't give it away. But he remembers the line,
This is the one that seeks to do combat with me.
It's a very scary voice in a scary game that messes with your brain.
So next we have Go Go Twit.
Go, go, twit.
Go Go Twit Ranger. And of course, bringing up classic Street Fighter Hadouken.
Who doesn't love Street
Or
Fighter
you can-
sounds?
It almost sounds like he says like, or you can. And then the hack, like no one
Yeah.
knew what that
No,
was.
that goofy mess when they do their spin kicks.
And of course, the noise when you get knocked out at the end.
That was my favorite.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
You lose. Round one, fight. Sonic Boom. Yoga. I mean, so many classic lines coming out of this game. Tiger uppercut. And it came across well. That was another game that translated beautifully from arcade to console during the console wars of the 1990s.
All right, Darth Vader Ginsburg.
Ooh.
We got ourselves a StarCraft fan over here.
Yes.
Need a light? Got any questions about propane? Or propane accessories?
One of the coolest characters in StarCraft lore. All burned up. Need a light?
Retro gamer Anthony Shane 2 brings up one of the games you were talking about earlier, Metal Gear Solid 1.
Classic.
Yes, and this famous line.
When Gray Fox says, "Hurt me more."
Yeah.
And not long after that, or no, I think it's the sequence before that when he scares the crap out of Otacon when he says, "These guys are like out of my Japanese animes." It's such a silly line.
What's with these guys? It's like one of my Japanese animes.
But I love those actors, and that guy did Otacon all them years. Boy. Whew.
Extend to the Jam, Lewis Gornfield comes at us with a pretty unique game, Zombie Revenge for the Dreamcast.
Whoa, I never played that one.
Yeah, woo, you're really digging on this one. You really likes the way they say bullets when you pick them up in this game.
Bullets, bullets, bullets.
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 It's like they had like a French guy or some Spanish guy
Yeah.
record their voices. Bullets. That must be what the Dos Equis guy did before he was the Dos Equis guy.
Gun, Sword, Fist.
Gun, sword, fist. Tweeted at us.
Sounds like a brutal rock, paper, scissors game.
Gun, sword, fist. Ah!
Mass Effect 2. Grunt saying, good bunch if they stay out of my way, dead bunch if they don't. Do you remember that one?
Not exactly, but that sounds exactly like something Grunt would say. Metal Gun Fist. Thank you. I love Mass Effect, and Mass Effect 2 is probably the best.
I love you, Grunt.
So we got Retro Brandon Logan.
You can't have 3 names.
Reload from House of the Dead. Reload.
Shoot outside of the screen.
We've been playing that a lot lately.
Yeah, it's at our favorite little local barcade. They got House of the Dead. Ooh, Twincade. Name drop. I found a really good line from House of the Dead 2.
Which was also at that local theater we used to frequent.
So this line from House of the Dead 2 is one I remember. It's silly.
Don't come! Don't come! Don't come! Don't come!
Just don't.
Just don't.
Look, just don't. When you're at the theater, you're playing a game, there's people around, just don't come.
Mm-hmm.
And on that sick note, we are going to wrap it up. We want to thank you.
You're going to wrap it up so you don't come.
On that sick note, we're going to wrap it up.
Okay. Oh.
So we aren't coming anywhere near you. Because this episode is over. The police are coming right now, entering the door as we speak.
Don't come.
And we're telling them, don't come. We need to finish.
Yeah.
Don't come.
So thank you all for joining us tonight in our Twitter discussions and telling the tales.
I hope our voices get stuck in your head the same way some of these sound effects and voice lines are stuck in your head.
Absolutely. We're going to try and be more on track for our future episodes. But of course, sometimes that thing called life gets in the way.
Cut my life into pieces.
Oh, no. We love you all very much. Be sure to reach us, follow us, interact with us on Twitter at BitWarVets, or you can reach Meow Tae Ching at Meow Tae Ching. MEOWTECHING.
In case you don't know how to spell.
Because it is a weird name. You could also listen to us on your favorite podcast player if you aren't already right now. Tell your friends, check us out on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, whatever you use. We should be there, waiting for you to listen to us.
Mm-hmm. And look forward to more videos for us on YouTube. You could search us by searching Bit War Veterans. Currently,
we need you to go there and subscribe, because once we hit 100 subscribers, then we can have that slick youtube.com/BitWarVeterans. That should make it much easier for you and your friends and your family to go visit our stupid faces.
Our mugs.
Pray to all the gods and the devils too. We should have an episode out for you in another 2 weeks. We will see you next time
on
the Bit War Veterans.